This is Face the Nation, broadcasting live from the CNN IBN headquarters in New Delhi with Sagarika Ghosh.
Hi there, good evening. We're focusing tonight on a story of how the disabled continue to be publicly humiliated in so-called modern India. Yesterday, a woman who has cerebral palsy was asked to deplane from a SpiceJet flight. Reports say the pilot mistook the passenger for a mentally challenged patient. The woman, 42-year-old Javed Ghosh, in fact teaches at Kolkata's Indian Institute of Cerebral Palsy, and she was on her way to Goa to attend a conference on, ironically, mainstreaming disability. Javed Ghosh spoke to CNN IBN's Priyanka Gupta in Kolkata.
I got to know that it was the pilot who had the problem. I was humiliated. I was insulted. I want SpiceJet to take action. Either they should cause that captain or he gives a public apology to the media, to me, and the entire disability sector.
Javed Ghosh saying she felt humiliated and insulted, and not only should SpiceJet give a public apology to her but to the entire community of disabled people. Now, SpiceJet has given a two-line apology for the incident. They have said, I quote, "We deeply apologize for the inconvenience caused to the passenger and express regret for the incident. The matter will be investigated and action will be taken." Joining us tonight, Javed Abidi, convener of the Disabled Rights Group, is joining us. Mary Barua, Director of Action for Autism, is joining us. Captain D.K. Sachan, he is a serving pilot. He is joining us. And we're hoping to be joined by Mithu Alur, founder and chairperson of ABLE, Disabled All People Together Adapt. She's supposed to join us from Goa. We'll see if we can get across our line to Mithu Alur. But for the moment, we have our guests in the studio. And the question we're discussing, cerebral palsy patient deplaned. Do the disabled continue to be discriminated against in so-called modern India? Let me start it off with you, Mary Barua. What has shocked people is not perhaps just the horrifying discrimination of asking the woman to deplane, but the manner in which it was done, in the rather insulting and humiliating manner in which, after being issued a boarding card, she was in the plane in front of all the passengers. The pilot and flight attendants say, "Get out, we think you're mentally challenged." I mean, this is not only discriminatory, it's horrifyingly insulting and humiliating.
Absolutely. I mean, she's got a boarding card. She's in the aircraft. She's seated. And then suddenly she sees a commotion around herself, and she's told that she has to be unceremoniously deplaned. And I cannot even begin to imagine what Jija went through at that point. But I think this is not something that is happening the first time, and nor will this be the last time, I think, because this kind of thing keeps happening repeatedly. And sometimes you are deplaned from the aircraft itself, sometimes you're not given a boarding card, and for a range of reasons. And also the other thing that I wanted to just point out, that I just saw that the pilot thought that she was mentally challenged. But if she was somebody who was mentally challenged but perfectly capable, if she were, Jija is not. I mean, the pilot couldn't have picked on a more crazy, situation, because Jija is somebody who's well traveled, probably more widely traveled than the pilot himself. She's well educated. She's lived abroad on her own, and yet the pilot thought she was not capable. But supposing it was a person with a mental disability who was able to travel on her own or his own, was able to independently get by, what business does the pilot have to deplane?
If there is a mental disability, what business is it of the pilot?
Yes.
Is it an infringement of that person's rights?
Course.
In fact, let's put that to Mithu Alur. Mithu Alur, it was on your invitation that Javed Ghosh was travelling to Goa for that conference where she was to speak on mainstreaming of the disabled. Now, tell us about Jija, because my research is telling me she's a postgraduate in social work and disability studies in Leeds. She's widely travelled. She's completely self-sufficient. She's a regular flyer. She is at the Indian Institute of Cerebral Palsy, and she is someone perfectly capable of looking after herself. So if this is happening to Javed Ghosh, then what must be happening to those who are not similarly placed and not similarly educated?
It's all a question of the government in inaction. I mean, how many times they've been told it's a mandate, it's a statute, it's legislation has been passed. Jija's 43 years old, double MA, University of Leeds. I know her from when she was very small. I recently saw her at Vigyan Bhavan, where she was giving a talk at a presidential award ceremony. And like, it's just amazing. You just don't know where you're going to start in this country, because you know that I've been working here for 40 years. And it's the biggest shame. It's a real black day in India today, you know. And especially when we are having 25 people from all over the world coming here to learn about inclusive education in a huge conference in Goa. And she was one of our participants where she was going to be speaking. I just am totally shocked. I just absolutely so depressed and upset about the whole thing, you know.
Let me put it to you, Captain D.K. Sachan. You've heard Mary Barua, you've heard Mithu Alur. Now, here is someone who is herself saying she's perfectly capable of flying. She then rang up her senior from the airport, and the senior said, yes, she's capable of flying, please let her travel. Still, the pilot, and you are a pilot, said, no, you have to get off my plane because I think you're mentally ill. Now, is this not a highly cruel act?
What I will say is not a cruel act. You are seeing the case as now when the whole thing has happened. What I will perceive when I am sitting in the cockpit, when I come to know, when my cabin crew comes and says, we have got a passenger who looks mentally unstable and she is without a attendant. As per my rule book, I am taking the consideration of all my passengers, safety of all passengers. I don't have much time to see who is the passenger, who he or she is. I will just, looking at just pure professional way, I will say, kindly board her out. I am not going by that fact what she is, what condition she is. I have not seen. What I have been communicated. I am sitting in the cockpit. I am preparing for the flight. I have got much more important things to do in the cockpit when I am preparing for the next leg. So this is one of the things which I come to know. When I am sitting in the cockpit, I have got so much load.
It's a safety measure, it's a precautionary measure for other passengers. Javed Abidi, let me quote to you a statement by the US Airways, which also similarly deplaned a disabled passenger, which said that the airline requires that the passenger has to be physically able to assist himself or herself in the event of an emergency. If the passenger cannot, the airline requires that someone else travels with the passenger who can provide assistance in the event of an emergency. She was not escorted, so therefore in the event of an emergency, the airline took that decision.
No, first of all, even that email that you have got from some airline or someone is blatantly incorrect. I mean, I'm a frequent flyer. I'm a wheelchair user. I'm sitting here in front of you. I travel alone all the time, not just within India but internationally. I mean, I have not brought my passport with me right now, but practically every month I am out and I travel on my own, and no airline, or at least no decent airline, has ever told me that just because I am paraplegic, and obviously in the event of an emergency I will not be able to get up and run and save myself or save anyone else, but then the question is that in the event of an emergency, how many people will have the sanity and will
how many people are able? Most people are disabled in an emergency.
So we should not allow the debate, because there is already a defense building up. And I'm actually very angry right now with you know, our good friend here who just because he's a pilot, so you know, so therefore he has to defend a completely undefendable act.
Okay, this was an undefendable act.
No, how can someone say that just because I am sitting in the cockpit, just because I am so important, and just because I have to save the world, and just because I have to fly the damn aircraft, so therefore I am going to humiliate you, and I am going to, and he used the word deboard. I am saying, and we have demanded that already yesterday on behalf of the disabled rights group, to say that it's time to deboard this pilot.
So you think the pilot should be sacked?
I would say that exemplary action should be taken against the pilot. For the last 48 hours an inquiry is going on. SpiceJet has a template. I have brought letters of apology which various airlines have given to various passengers from time to time. It's a template.
Right.
They just shamelessly press the button.
You know, the horrifying thing is, Captain Sachan, is that, you know, pilots make all concessions to VIPs.
Exactly.
Security considerations are not there when it comes to VIP passengers. Their planes are kept grounded on the runway for hours waiting for VIPs to board. But a self-sufficient woman with a disability whose success we should celebrate is humiliated by the pilot in front of the passengers. I mean, surely this is not worthy of a civilized society.
She has already checked in. She has already got a boarding card.
Right.
She is already in the aircraft. And even if there is a suspicion, all that the pilot had to do was to go out and talk to her. Let her explain. I mean, we have heard her.
Or perhaps even to do it a little more discreetly, but you know, rather than doing it in this really humiliating manner.
May I say something? May I say something? Now, why are you targeting a pilot here itself? There have been numerous cases where a pilot, just by knowing even a smallest thing, like one passenger comes and declares that he is having a pain in ears. I know as a pilot, if I do a normal kind of descent, I may burst his eardrums. So in that particular case,
I mean, what is the connection?
I'll just
what is it that you are trying to tell us?
I'm trying to tell that pilots are so concerned about each and every passenger. We are so concerned about each and everything. We have diverted a flight just by.
I wish you were that concerned.
Yeah. No,
I really wish that you were that concerned.
Just we are concerned. Even
but Captain Sachan, are people going to have to take a fitness test before they board SpiceJet?
No, and it is
you may have old people, you may have infants, you may have people who are not fully fit and I mean, this can't be survival of the fittest.
Exactly, ma'am.
It can't be that you have to be in full possession of all your faculties and, you know, really fighting fit to board an aircraft.
No,
because otherwise you may suffer certain consequences. I mean, that's a reductio ad absurdum.
No, ma'am. You can't say this ki pilots are insensitive. Pilots are very sensitive to each and every passenger. Especially
we are not saying that all pilots are insensitive. We are saying that this particular pilot is extremely insensitive, and we are getting the feeling that even you are insensitive. And by the way, who is that pilot and who is that airline to decide, as she said, as to who is fit and who is not fit? We have hold on. We have paid the fare. Okay, we are not a freeloader.
Okay,
and you carry freeloaders, of course. Let's not talk about them. There is a guideline. All these issues have happened in the past.
Let me read out the Office of the Director General of Civil Aviation. These are DGCA guidelines. No airline shall refuse to engage in interline transactions for carriage of disabled persons or persons with reduced mobility, or to continue interline transportation of such persons. Many persons with disabilities, I'm going to ask my producer to bring up this DGCA guideline. Many persons with disability do not require constant assistance for their activities. Therefore, if the passenger declares independence in feeding, communication with reasonable accommodation, toileting and personal needs, the airline shall not insist on the presence of an escort.
Absolutely correct.
May I add something? There are many instances of people with mental disabilities who have an escort with them, who have still been prevented, including SpiceJet. We know plenty of instances where the families had to just go back.
We had that instance of the boy with autism, Mary, where he was accompanied by the parents.
He was being prevented.
And he was prevented.
No, but Javed, let me just argue from Captain Sachan's point of view, because he's looking a little bit hunted right now. What if there is an incident on board? You know, what if there is an incident of a fall or somebody else being incapacitated? Then surely the airline would be liable. The airline would have to take responsibility.
That is the reason why it's not a question of my opinion versus Captain Sachan's opinion versus your opinion. A committee was formed. These guidelines that you're referring to resulted from a similar case, that of Rajiv Rajan, which was blown up just like this one. A committee was constituted by DGCA. I'm sure, because see, in every case there is an authority, and if we are talking about civil